Economics is a way for us to analyse the material living standards in different countries and societies, and is a way for us to judge the decision making made by individuals or institutions which may affect the overall economy. So when it comes to judging, we must look at the incentives over that of the goals when it comes to an economic system or of course policies. It's vitally important, in other words, to basically look at the consequences of decision making, especially when we've seen in the past certain decision making made by governments that has been disastrous. A prime example of this was the Soviet Union, that had disastrous consequences with regards to its centralisation of agriculture. As part of that, we had the fourth largest lake in the world, known as the Aral Sea, and it was because of the centralisation of agriculture they redirected the rivers that fed it, and by 1960 the Aral Sea had ran dry. So this is a prime example. We must look and judge things from the consequences of decision making to not just the short term, but of course the long term. Economics can be viewed as a system of production as to how we provide the market with goods and services. However, this is very simplistic. It's very important to understand that resources are not infinite. Resources are finite. Of course, when we talk about resources, they are scarce. Therefore, we must economise in order to provide goods and services efficiently. Economics is really all about how we provide for the market efficiently, which of course will improve the living standards. Now, when you compare a country, for example, like Venezuela, who has a very poor living standard but has a vast amount of resources, we can see the contrasting difference when you look at places like Hong Kong, who have a lack of resources but is a city that thrives with its living standards. So as a result of resources being scarce, and politicians could make you all the promises about how they can provide for the market. Now there are of course alternative uses. We must provide for the market efficiently so that the consumers get what they want, but there's no waste. This is the problem when it comes to government's planning. When government plans production, you tend to find, just like what happened with the Soviet Union, they mass-produced shoes or they mass-produced pelts, which of course consumers did not demand. And as a result of that, it led to a waste of resources. And it's important to note this because resources are scarce. So a government cannot provide for you without having to take from another. So in other words, as a result of government providing for you with the certain resources, it means less resource for what could have been used more beneficially in another area of the economy, such as from the private sector. So when it comes to describing about scarcity, people's expectations often exceed the quantity of resources that are available to them. In other words, people often want what they don't have. People often want more than what they already have, so they want what they can't afford, and they forget that they have a lot of things that third world countries don't have. So one of the biggest problems that we face with regards to people's misunderstanding of economics is that there isn't enough resources to go around to meet everyone's desires, and it's very important to understand this. So regardless of what economic system we talk of, we could talk about socialism or capitalism or regards to fascism, it doesn't matter what it is. When we talk about an economic system, there are always going to be needs that are unmet because there aren't enough resources to go around to meet everyone's desires. So don't be fooled into thinking that economics is all about money. Economics is really about our place in this world and how we provide for our living standards, to improve our living standards in the most efficient possible way, and how we get things done. That's more or less what economics is. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments section below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you for watching. Cheers.